What would you do if your husband was wrongly deported, labeled a criminal without a trial, and then, as if that wasn't enough, your own government exposed your home address to millions of people online? This is a heartbreaking true story of Jennifer Vasquez Sura, a Maryland mother forced into hiding with her 3 children after the Trump administration posted her private information on social media, all while her husband, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, remained exiled in El Salvador, the very country he was supposed to be protected from. What happened to this family is more than just a legal failure. It's a terrifying example of what happens when power, politics, and broken systems collide. Wife of wrongly deported Maryland man Kilmar Abrego Garcia forced into safe house after government posts address online. In the heart of Maryland, a family once lived quietly, a husband, a wife, and their 3 children, some with special needs. They were immigrants, dreamers, survivors. Their lives, while never easy, were stitched together with hope. But all that changed with one fateful decision by the U.S. government. A decision that not only tore their family apart, but put them directly in harm's way. This is the story of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a wrongly deported father, and his wife, Jennifer Vasquez Sura, who was later forced into hiding, not by criminals, but by the very government meant to protect her. Kilmar came to the United States from El Salvador, like many before him, in pursuit of safety, opportunity, and a better life. He settled in Maryland, where he met and built a life with Jennifer. They created a home, started a family, and did what many immigrants do. They worked hard, stayed low profile, and tried to live honestly. But beneath the surface, they were struggling with the pressure of everyday life, raising children in an expensive country, and navigating the exhausting maze of immigration bureaucracy. Then came 2019. Kilmar was arrested and detained by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. A federal court later issued an order blocking his deportation for humanitarian reasons, citing his family and unique circumstances. But the Trump administration ignored that order. In 2025, years after his detention, he was deported anyway, quietly and swiftly, without fair warning to his family, and most shockingly, without any legal process. To justify this move, the government began painting Kilmar as dangerous. They labeled him a violent MS, 13 gang member. They claimed he was involved in human trafficking. Press briefings accused him of being a woman beater. Yet, none of these allegations were ever proven or submitted in court. Instead, they leaned on one old incident from 2021, an argument between Kilmar and Jennifer during which he struck her. It led to protective order at the time, but Jennifer withdrew that order 1 month later, explaining it had been an isolated incident under intense emotional pressure. Jennifer later opened up about that painful moment. She didn't hide it. She said the argument happened at a breaking point. With no money, no legal clarity, and the weight of raising children alone, it became too much. She acknowledged that Kilmar made a mistake, but insisted he was not a violent man, not an abuser, not a gang member, just a man crushed by the stress of an unforgiving system. But the government had its narrative, and they ran with it aggressively. And then things got worse. In an unprecedented move, the Department of Homeland Security shared a court document on X, formerly Twitter, with over 2.4 million followers. The document included Jennifer's full home address, her private residence, the place where she lived with her 3 children, was suddenly exposed to millions during the height of a viral, controversial immigration case. The internet erupted. Supporters and critics both weighed in. But for Jennifer, the situation turned into a living nightmare. "I don't feel safe when the government posts my address," she said in an emotional interview with the Washington Post. "Especially when this case has gone viral, and people have all sorts of opinions. This is definitely a bit terrifying. I'm scared for my kids." Terrified and without protection, Jennifer had no choice but to leave her home and move her children into a safe house. She wasn't running from criminals. She wasn't fleeing gang violence. She was running from the reach of her own government, the government that should have protected her from danger, not placed her directly in its path. Meanwhile, Kilmar remained in El Salvador, the very place he had originally fled, the very country a court said he should not be sent back to. His legal advocates continued to fight, but time passed. His children grew up without him, and his voice remained silent, unheard amid the roar of public outrage and political spin. Back in the U.S., Jennifer remained resilient. In interviews, she defended her husband. She never claimed he was perfect, but she stood by the truth. He was a father trying his best. "Every day you grow. Every day you learn," she said. "And he was trying his best for me, for our kids, for our future." Democratic lawmakers and immigrant advocates echoed her concerns. They argued that Kilmar had been denied due process, a basic right guaranteed in the U.S. Constitution. Instead of facing trial or having a chance to respond to accusations, he was removed on the basis of accusations that were never tested in court. This wasn't just an immigration case. It became a symbol of something larger. The way public institutions sometimes abandon fairness for narrative, how political expediency can crush human dignity, and how vulnerable families often carry the heaviest burdens when systems fail. As of now, Jennifer still lives in hiding. Her children miss their father. Her life is forever changed. She continues to speak out, hoping that their story will serve as a wake-up call, hoping that other families won't have to endure what hers did. This story is not just about deportation. It's about broken trust, about what happens when politics replaces compassion, when fear overrides fairness, and when the people who need protection most are instead left out in the cold. Jennifer's last words in her interview still echo powerfully. "Look, Kilmar's not perfect. Nobody is. But what happened to him, to us, is not justice." And she's right. Justice is not about perfection. It's about fairness. It's about humanity. And in this case, that humanity was lost. The safe house Jennifer and her children were moved into wasn't a home. It was a shelter, a temporary stop with barred windows, unfamiliar walls, and the ever-present fear of being found. The children, confused and traumatized, didn't understand why they had to leave behind their toys, their rooms, their school. Jennifer tried to explain, but how do you tell a child that their safety is in danger because the government made them a target? At night, she couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboard, every flicker of a streetlight outside the window sent her heart racing. She worried about who might come knocking, not to help, but to harass. After all, the internet can be cruel, and after the government posted her address, hateful messages started flooding her inbox. Strangers accused her of protecting a criminal. Others demanded to know why she hadn't gone back to her country. But this was her country now. This was her children's country, the only home they had ever known. And somewhere, thousands of miles away in El Salvador, Kilmar was enduring his own silent torment. With no family nearby and no legal standing, he tried to survive in a country plagued by violence, poverty, and the very threats he had once fled. Communication between him and Jennifer became sporadic. Calls would drop. Power outages would cut them off. And the distance, emotional and physical, began to feel unbearable. Still, Jennifer refused to give up. She connected with immigrant rights groups, legal aid organizations, and journalists. She told her story again and again, even when it hurt, even when her voice cracked. She hoped that by speaking out, anyone would listen. She wanted to believe that in a country built by immigrants, there was still room for justice, for compassion, for second chances. Then small victories began to emerge. Human rights attorneys filed petitions. Lawmakers held press conferences. Letters were written to the Department of Homeland Security demanding answers. Jennifer's bravery had turned her into an unwilling symbol. The face of a broken system, yes, but also a mother unwilling to let her family be destroyed in silence. Her children, once quiet and withdrawn, began to find their own ways to cope. The eldest wrote letters to their father, telling him about school, their favorite meals, and how much they miss his hugs. The youngest would cry at night, clutching an old T-shirt that still smelled faintly of Kilmar. And through it all, Jennifer did her best to be strong, to cook, to read bedtime stories, to be both mother and father. But the legal road was long and the outcome uncertain. There were rumors that Kilmar might be allowed to return, that maybe, just maybe, someone in power was finally listening. But those hopes came and went like waves. Each letter from a senator gave her a glimmer of hope. Each government delay brought her back to despair. Then came another blow. A new statement from the administration reiterated that Kilmar was a public safety threat, doubling down on the accusations, again, without offering any new evidence. The cycle of demonization continued. For Jennifer, it was more than frustrating. It was dangerous. Every time they repeated those claims, it justified keeping him out. It made it harder to fight for his return. It put her safety and her children's future further at risk. But Jennifer stood firm. "If they think they can break me, they don't know who I am," she told a local reporter during an interview in the safe house. "They took my husband. They tried to silence me. But I won't stop until he's back. Until we're a family again." And that, more than anything, became her mission, not just survival, but reunification. Slowly, more people began to notice. Advocacy groups launched social media campaigns under hashtags like #BringKilmarHome and #ProtectJennifer. Thousands signed petitions. News outlets picked up the story again, asking hard questions. Why was a woman's address posted online in the middle of a sensitive immigration case? Why was a deportation allowed to proceed after a court ordered it blocked? Why was this family being punished over an incident that had been resolved years ago? Even conservatives began to ask whether the administration's response had gone too far. A former immigration official, speaking anonymously, admitted to a reporter that the public release of the address was unusual and potentially dangerous. But no one in government took responsibility. And so the days went on. Jennifer kept waiting, kept hoping, kept fighting. Eventually, legal experts advised her that there might be a path, a humanitarian parole that could bring Kilmar back temporarily while his case was reviewed. It was a narrow option, reserved for exceptional circumstances. But if anyone's story qualified, it was theirs. Jennifer filed the paperwork. She wrote a statement. She gathered affidavits from neighbors, teachers, therapists, anyone who could vouch for her husband's character and the devastating impact of his absence. It was a mountain of work, and there was no guarantee it would succeed. But she did it anyway. Because at the end of the day, Jennifer wasn't just trying to fix a broken immigration case. She was trying to bring her husband home, to let her children sleep in peace, to give her family a chance at healing. As the second year of separation approached, Jennifer recorded a message for Kilmar. It wasn't long, just a few minutes. She held the camera close, her eyes full of tears, but her voice steady. "Kilmar," she said, "you are not forgotten. The kids miss you. I miss you. We're still here. We're still fighting. I don't care what they say about you. I know who you are. We love you. And we're waiting." That video, shared online, was watched by thousands. It was raw. It was real. And for a brief moment, it cut through the noise, the narrative, the politics, and reminded everyone watching, this isn't just a case. This is a family. Let this story remind us all that behind every headline, behind every policy, there are real people, real families, real lives,